So we're here to talk about Minnesota's home field advantage, and I sort of felt like this might be a little troublesome for Minnesota fans, notwithstanding the Twins and the Lynx fans. But the good news is the Wolves and the Twins are doing well, so hope springs eternal. And we're not going to talk about the Vikings. So, but that's on the sports side. I think it's very, very safe for us to say that we can be very confident and bashfully proud of the home field advantage from a MedTech standpoint. And so before we dive into that, I want to just turn to our panelists and give them a minute or two to introduce themselves and talk a little bit about their background. So we'll start on the end with Julie, and you can start us off. That'd be great.
Hello, everyone. I'm Julie Henry. I'm one of the chairs in the Department of Business Development at Mayo Clinic. I've been at Mayo for 31 years. I started out in the research laboratories doing peptide synthesis, protein sequencing work before I went back to school and did my MBA and have moved on now to the Department of Business Development, where we're tasked with intellectual property of Mayo Clinic. We have the tech transfer group within our office, as well as our corporate development team that's working on mergers and acquisitions and new startup initiatives for Mayo Clinic.
Thank you. Finn?
Right, great, thanks. I'm Finn Sampson. I'm an investment manager with the U's Office of Investments in Banking, OIB, and I work with a team at OIB to manage the state's SSBCI venture capital funds, which includes a fund of funds where we invest in Minnesota-based VCs, some of them are here, and also a direct VC fund, where we'll make our own direct investments. I also work with a team there that is managing the Discovery Capital Fund at the U, which invests in startups that spin out of the U. My background, real quick, just to give you some perspective, is very technical by trade. I came here to the Twin Cities as a biomedical engineer. And then after about 12 years of developing orthopedic products, jumped into the venture capital world with a firm called Affinity Capital, where we did a lot of investing here in Minnesota in various types of healthcare deals, device, IT, service, enabling biotech solutions. And I've also been on the entrepreneurial side. And then once again, most recently joined the Office of Investments in Banking. So that's my background.
Thanks, Finn.
Okay.
Sarah?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Sarah Worrell. I'm here as a founder of a MedTech startup that started right here in Minnesota. It is a women's health company called Bellity Health that is bringing a really cool technology to women who have breast cancer. And we would be considered early stage for sure. And I'm excited to talk about how important angel investors have been for us.
Thank you. Tammy?
Yes, hello everyone. I'm Tammy Kuzman. I am with Allina Health. I'm the treasurer at Allina Health. And what Allina does, we really have two areas within our investment portfolio where we invest in venture capital, and that is within our strategic healthcare VC. That is a component of our portfolio that really looks at innovation and disruptors and partnering with strategic healthcare VC firms. And then we also have an impact investing mandate that really looks at more place-based investing and a component of equity and VC within that realm. So my background, I've been with Allina Health for 2 years as the Vice President of Treasury and Investments, leading our Treasury team. Prior to that, I was at Centricare, leading the Treasury team there, and come with a public accounting background.
Thank you. And I'm Dan Cunningham. Been here my entire professional career. First job out of college was at Medtronic. Fist pumped to Finn on the biomedical engineering training to get out of college. But since that point, have founded and launched over a dozen companies. Almost all of those have been seeded by angel investors. Obviously, there's a variety of some wins and some losses. That's sort of the nature of the beast. We have been successful at moving a lot of those companies along, attracting strategic advisors and also financial advisors as well. So happy to be on the panel today. We've got a great diversity here from providers, don't have the payer side, but we have the entrepreneur side, and we have Also have the institutional academic side as well. So that being said, I think we'll just launch into it. We're here to talk about Minnesota's home field advantage. I think it might be good to sort of zoom out a little bit first before we zoom in. On the world stage, I think it's important for us all to recognize that there are a number of world-class companies in this state. So we've got the leading payer, United Health here. We've got Mayo Clinic, who was routinely rated as the highest rated provider in the world. And then we've also got Medtronic, which is one of the largest, if not the largest, medical device company. So it's very unusual, number one, and you would be hard-pressed to find a combination, that type of combination, and all of the progeny that those companies have thrown off over the years. It's just an enormous ecosystem, and it really helps not only entrepreneurs, but it certainly helps angel investors as well. I mean, you sort of get caught in the wake of all that. So that being said, I wanted to sort of talk about want to have Julie kind of weigh into the fact that, from a Mayo perspective, they are one of the highest rated providers in the world. And I just wanted to ask you, how does Mayo think about that? How do you lean into that? Also, talk a little bit about how you guys support your PIs and your MDs when they have an idea and they want to launch a company, and then how that trickles down to the angels as well. And I know it's an open-ended question, but I'll let you sort of run with it, and we can sort of go from there.
Sure, thank you. As Danny said, there's a large concentration of talent and innovation and opportunities here in Minnesota, and there's a lot of individuals that are ready to move innovation forward, and there's an abundance of resources there. So from a Mayo Clinic perspective, we're certainly committed to providing assets and resources to move innovation forward and to work with entities. Not only internally at Mayo Clinic with our own innovators, but also with collaborations and partnerships. We do a lot with our community as well, and so there's a lot that we do going to support the entrepreneurial ecosystem. We work at strategically job performance and bringing in new strategic partners into the area and the region. But we're also looking at how do we fund and help other entities move forward as well. Mayo's main goal is to bring new technologies and opportunities for our patients to cure health. So whether that's our own patients or whether that's patients everywhere, we think that right now, Minnesota right now is a right place for investment based upon all of the activities that's happening. And from a perspective from our innovators, we get at Mayo Clinic Ventures at least a new idea or two a day formally. So we're reviewing a lot of brand new innovations and technologies and ideas that come through just working within our own staff. And as part of that, we certainly have ways that we work with others and angel investors. We have innovators that do the entrepreneurial program within Mayo where they go out and start their own companies. And obviously they're looking at how do they get investors and how do they work with people like yourselves to start moving their technologies forward. But also a lot of our early startup companies that we license our technologies into are also funded by a lot of individuals at an early stage. And so the advancement of access to our innovators and our staff and our resources really is helping drive technologies forward.
Thank you. And I just wanted to say that I think it's really important from an angel perspective because you've got that great knowledge and great support of the Mayo system. And if you're an angel investor and you invest in a company that's founded or has technology developed at the Mayo, it is incredibly valuable when the company goes and raises money. I was fortunate enough to license some technology out of the Mayo, sold that company last year. But when you get in front of investors, it's a great brand to work with, and that's great for angels because you want that company to continue raising money so you can get out and make a return on your investment as well. So don't forget that. Please pay attention to that. That's really important. So I just wanted to sort of put a pin on that one for you guys. Okay, next question is, the U.S. Department of Commerce recently designated Minnesota as one of the country's tech hubs, the only one focused on MedTech. Given U.S. leads the world in MedTech, this is real acknowledgement that this is the world's headquarters for MedTech development. So I'd like to sort of ask the panel, what does that really mean for us, and what would that mean for angel investors as well? So I'm going to throw it to Tammy first, and then we'll maybe go back to Julie and then to Finn. So.
Yes, well, I think the Tech Hub designation is really a significant testament to the innovation and leadership and that community that's been created by the top payer, the top health system, and all of the MedTech in Minnesota. I think it reaffirms the position and highlights just Minnesota's unique role in and as the epicenter of MedTech. And really, as we think about the potential to accelerate growth, the MedTech designation really, as we think about fostering innovation, driving economic growth, enhancing collaboration, and delivering equitable outcomes, all of those are really in alignment with how Allina Health thinks about and the mission and purpose of Allina Health as an organization.
Julie, you want to take a stab at that one?
Yeah, when I think about the tech hub, it's really aligning the medical manufacturers, providers, intellectual property groups, equity groups, the government, academic centers, private equity, really bringing them all together as a resource to help move things forward. It aligns us all to be able to be a unique place to drive MedTech here in Minnesota. When I think about it from a practitioner standpoint, from a provider, from a Mayo Clinic perspective, it really is going to provide us with opportunities and new technologies to help move things forward within our own patients. But from a startup perspective, I think it really gives you folks opportunities to have unique places to get grants and ways to move your technologies forward, but also to do it at a faster pace scale because of the opportunities that are going to rise from being the MedTech.
Thank you. Finn?
Yeah, so I agree with all that. Those are all great points. I think what I would add is what I think is significant is it's going to happen, right? Yeah, it's going to happen. So I think some of the resources that start to transition innovation to be more smart MedTech, that is AI, machine learning enabled, or more digital solutions, makes a lot of sense. When I look at problems in healthcare that we need to solve, and the type of startups that are out there to solve those issues, there's definitely a lot of opportunity for what we think of as traditional MedTech solutions. There's definitely a lot of opportunity for that. But I think as I think about problems to solve, things like how do we help providers practice medicine? How do we increase access to care? How do we address some of the care provider staff shortages and so on? A lot of that can be addressed with smart MedTech and digital health solutions. So I think this is going to provide an avenue and a way to facilitate a lot of those types of solutions. Yeah, so I'll stop there.
Okay. And just a final thought there. Obviously, anything that creates more critical mass and momentum in this ecosystem is great for angel investors, right? Because again, it's just great to be working in an environment and an ecosystem where you have all that support, all that investment. It de-risks your investment, frankly, because all those capabilities are at the hands of the people that are building these businesses, and we should all be very thankful and happy that the government has sort of bestowed that upon us here in the Midwest. Okay, so the next question is a little bit more centric to companies and the importance of the investor groups there. And so my question is, what special considerations when investing in healthcare and innovation should angels take into consideration that may differ from other industry sectors? And so, Sarah, I'm going to toss it to you because you're on the front line of this. You just raised a round of financing, and it's probably near and dear to your heart of all the things you had to talk to investors about. So,
yeah, sure. By show of hands, I'm a little curious to see how many of you in the room are angel investors or have invested in healthcare or MedTech, because I know it's a pretty big range of industries. Great. About half of you. So, when I think about the question, I think, what's the difference between investing in the MedTech or a healthcare startup versus, any other industry, and what the similarities are. And, I think that it's similar in that you, in an early stage as an angel investor, are really investing in the team and the founder, and the idea. And those things are the same. Same with MedTech, right? But I think what's different is, you know, when you're investing in a MedTech startup, you're talking about that, you know, some sort of medical ailment or healthcare issue, and it's got more of a personal story that goes with it, likely tied to a loved one. And I think that gives perhaps more meaning to the investment. And you know, that's important not to get clouded by that when you're making these decisions as an investor, but it's also important that you're interested and you're invested, you know, in where you're putting your money. So I think that our investors, you know, like I said, we wouldn't be where we are today if we didn't have this angel investment community in Minnesota, especially given what's happening with venture capital and private equity and IPOs and things like that right now. Angel investors are even more important, especially in the early stage. These innovations won't get off the ground. And you know, even if an idea does come out of Mayo, it has to be funded in order to you know, get to the point where it's commercial and the company has a chance for an exit. So the other thing about, you know, to consider with MedTech or healthcare is the timeline. You know, you're not going to probably invest and then see a return in 1 year, probably not 2 years. I think the average is closer to 10 years. And so you just need to have that expectation, you know, that you get to watch that company, you get to watch how they change and grow and adapt because they are a startup over time. And I think that's really neat. But of course there are, and one last thing, you know, special considerations that are likely different. So there's the intellectual property that you may need to be able to understand and be able to ask those kinds of questions and understand how well protected the company is from the competition from an intellectual property standpoint. There's also the business plan. There needs to be a solid business plan that works, just like any other company. And then because it's MedTech, you know, there are real challenges with regulators. And you really need to understand your, you know, regulatory pathway, and not just through the FDA, but also, you know, once you get to the point where your product is, you know, commercial, how it's going to be reimbursed. And so, a lot of really important questions to be asking when you're looking at MedTech that are maybe different than other sectors in angel investing.
Thank you. Tammy, you have any thoughts there?
Yeah, I would just drill down on a couple of areas. I agree with everything you said, but when we think about healthcare investing and medtech investing, it's really critically important to think about the due diligence and the immense amount of research that has been done to really understand the strategic advantage or competitive advantage that that is there, and really identify who are the competitors and who and what are those potential customers. And as you think about it, you know, the timeline, yes, would echo within healthcare, within provider healthcare. Sometimes things don't move fast, and just recognizing and realizing that there are cycles, there are different time periods with CapEx cycles and otherwise, that it's really important to have that understanding of healthcare and the way things work in healthcare. There's consensus building, there's committees, there's sometimes a lot of structure that needs to be able to get through to move it through the process.
Yeah, so some of the things I would point out is I think a lot of the key fundamentals and some of the nuances about healthcare investing, especially intellectual property, clinicals, FDA regulatory approval, and so on, you've got to think about those and how they relate to each other. Instead of going down a checklist, you've got to understand, okay, here's my intellectual property, here's what I'm protecting, here's what I'm claiming. And then when you go for regulatory approval, you need to make sure that your indication for use and how you're labeled matches what you just, or, you know, what you're trying to protect and so on. So I've seen that where companies have tried to go through the less, burdensome path to get clearance, so they get some label indication for use. That all of a sudden, if you look back at their IP, isn't actually protected. But they thought, look, I just want to get on the market, but then they failed to actually stay within their, claims and protection. So you need to look at all those things together, not just a checklist. The other thing I would say is you want to take a step back and think about, okay, how do deals get done in this particular sector of health, of medical device or healthcare? Because some can provide an opportunity for multiple exits where it may be early pre-revenue, maybe you get clinical results, maybe you have to get FDA clearance, or maybe you have to take it all the way into commercialization and prove out the reimbursement piece. So just understanding, okay, what does an exit look like, and do you even have the capacity to play? You just need to take a step back and think about that situation as well. And then one last thing I would mention is there's a lot of knowledgeable angel investors here, and I heard the previous panel where they talked about some of the trade-offs of being on the board, an observer, or an advisor. And given some of the knowledgeable angel investors I know here, I would suggest you try and take those roles, because a lot of these early entrepreneurs, they need more than just your check. So being involved and lending your knowledge base, that's going to be just as valuable as your check. So
Great advice there too on the participation. We're hearing a lot now about capital efficiency, and that can mean a lot of things to a lot of people. But just as this is a quick example, I was raising money for a company. I think it was a C round. It was a C round, and it was burning about $1 million a month. And it was the time when the market was getting soft, and we'd done really fine raising money for them up to that point. But then no one was really interested. They wanted to talk. They wanted to understand what the company was, but they all had a problem with the fact that the company was burning money. So we stepped back, we went to the board, went to the management team. Okay, we've got to really change the game here. And we made some tough decisions, and we drove it to cash flow break even. And within a month, we had 3 term sheets on our table for investment. So it's just really paying attention to what's going on in the market, and then being able to make adjustments inside the business. Not always easy adjustments. Sometimes they're painful, but you have to acknowledge what's going on in the marketplace. And this gets back to my previous thing. If you're an angel and you're in that company, you want to be thinking about, is that team willing to make those kind of tough choices to respond to what's going on in the marketplace? And so I think it's, from a capital efficiency, that's sort of my story. But I also wanted to get, Sarah, your thoughts on having just raised money, and what are those expectations? You have your investors, did they ask you about that at all, or?
Well, I mean, they ask for the financials so they can see how much we're burning each month. But yeah, so we've been, and I think that this is a Midwestern ethic, and I think that's one of, to the point of the conversation today, what's our home field advantages. We are capital efficient, I think, by nature. We're not spending money on things we don't need. We are staying focused on the one goal at hand, even though there are many other things we want to be doing. And that's one way that we can be capital efficient. And then because we have the ecosystem that we have, especially here in Minnesota, instead of hiring several employees and having really high overhead, we have several companies now, a couple who are represented here today, who have resources that you can use fractionally and be capital efficient that way. And so the ecosystem here is supportive of capital efficiency at its core, I believe.
Yep. Finn?
Yeah, I would agree with a lot of those points. In fact, you mentioned a lot of the points I was going to make, but but yeah, a lot of the resources here, we're lucky, right, to have a lot of the resources. I'll point to Mayo Clinic's platform, the Discovery platform, the Solution Suite, which I think you're going to officially launch in the summer or so, which allows founders and companies to be capital efficient. I'll also point to some of the organizations. I think everyone knows Medical Alley and the ready reserves that are available to help companies understand really certain key fundamentals, whether it be the regulatory strategy or the reimbursement piece or so on. So we've got a lot of great resources as far as that goes. The other is this gets to be a pretty small community. So there's a lot of information sharing. And Danny, I'll use you and I as an example where, you gave me a lot of great advice on software as a medical device pricing model. Okay, Finn, here's how it works, right? So you saved me 2 months of running around customer discovery trying to figure out, how a pricing model works for a SAMD type device. So yeah, there's just a lot of great resources here to be able to, help founders be capital efficient.
Great. So let's shift to technology. Let's talk a little about artificial intelligence. Sometimes it's the savior, sometimes it's the boogeyman, and sometimes it happens in the same sentence. And so it's a very interesting technology, as we all know. It's developing extremely rapidly. In healthcare, it typically requires access to lots of data to sort of train your algorithms and things of that nature. So I just wanted to throw it to the panel here. In particular, with the care providers, they're typically sitting on enormous troves of data. And so what do you do with that, right? How do you make that available for artificial intelligence? Does it happen internally? Can it happen externally? What advice can you guys give along those lines? So I'm just sort of interested in your thoughts. And I know Mayo is squarely swimming, in the deep end of that pool right now. So
We are certainly. The world is moving to artificial intelligence and generative AI, and we have to go right along with them. So we're dealing with two very contradictory points at Mayo Clinic. The patient's data, keeping it private and secure, but also allowing it to be used to move innovation forward and to collaborate with others. So how do we do that? Internally, we certainly are working collaboratively with our innovators and getting ideas from them about where's the need within the practice and the solutions to try and help them. Obviously, there's a lot of AI solutions we could create, but if it doesn't fit within their workflow and it doesn't make their jobs easier, they're not going to use it. So we've been doing a lot of reach outs to our staff to try and figure out where are their pain points to figure out what do we want to do from an AI solution. Finn just brought up the Mayo Clinic platform. So data, of course, has to come right along with it. So what Mayo has chosen to do is taken all of Mayo's data from the electronic medical record, de-identified it, had it certified, and now it's sitting in what we call Mayo Clinic platform. So we are now allowing individuals who want access to that to have a subscription to come into that tenancy to work with that data. Now the data can't leave Mayo, so that's some of the pain points with some of the companies all want, well, just hand me your data. Well, we can't. And so what we're doing now is setting up tenancies for entities to be able to come in, and they can create models within it. They can validate their algorithms against it. They can do other searches and research for it. Some of the pharmaceutical companies are using it to try and figure out, people that are using my drug, what are some of the things that are happening? And so people are getting access to that so that we are able to move some of these innovations forward and get AI out to the marketplace.
great. Tammy, you have any thoughts there?
Yes, I would say Alina Health is not Mayo Clinic. We're not quite at that level, but I would say in terms of thinking about AI and data, it's really has to be rooted in governance and guiding principles. And really, as we think about what we are trying to accomplish in healthcare, improve the healthcare in our communities, there's a lot of alignment in utilizing AI, utilizing data, and finding some of those improvements. And so if we think about the alignment of what we are trying to accomplish, there's a lot of alignment there. It's how do we move forward with that governance model and that partnership model.
Finn, can you also, you're going to answer it, that's great, but also for the room, try to give some advice to the angel investors how to wade into the AI pool without drowning or getting burned, or if you have any words of wisdom for that, because it's not for the faint of heart sometimes.
I don't have any fiduciary duties on that type of advice, do I? Okay. All right. Well, one thing I want to add is I think the MedTech 3.0 and the regional innovation hub they're looking to create is going to be a great avenue for other hospitals to get more involved and to create some of that governance and some of those processes to make sure that data is being shared, safely and, meeting HIPAA compliance and so on. So I think it'll be a great avenue for those hospitals. And, you can see some who are, way ahead like Mayo, some who are thinking about it. And then I know other hospitals just, they're just not going to touch it at this point. So that'll be a great avenue to get more hospitals involved. As far as assessing AI opportunities, look, it's like any other opportunity you need to assess, right? You need to understand kind of the key fundamentals, problem solution, why is their solution differentiated from others, and what's the opportunity, and so on. But I would just make sure you really understand when they talk about AI, is it really AI? Because there's a lot of people who throw that term out, and when you really dig into it, it's not AI, it's not machine learning. Maybe it's a rules-based algorithm, which is fine because I'm looking at a deal right now, which is a rules-based algorithm, and they don't make any claims about being AI. So just really understanding what it is, and if it really is a meaningful part of their solution and could drive value, I would just make sure you really understand that piece. The other is how it gets developed. And a really key piece to develop a AI solution from prototype to a commercial product is once again, data. And understanding that you've got a diverse set of data set that's used to train that AI machine learning algorithm. So it's a robust solution. So for example, if all the data comes from, just here in the Twin Cities, it may not work as well in maybe say the East or West Coast. So that's the other thing I would mention too is the other interesting thing about Mayo Clinic's discovery platform is you're pulling data not just from Minnesota, but internationally. So having a diverse data set to train whatever AI solution it is, make sure you understand that as well.
Yeah,
So.
Great. So we've got a couple minutes left here. I think we'll just end with going down the line from the panel perspective. So what makes you the most excited about the future of healthcare and our opportunity to invest here in Minnesota? So Julie, we'll just sort of come this way.
So from a healthcare perspective, what really excites me is being on the cutting edge of seeing all of the technologies that are moving forward. I get the joy and the pleasure of every day seeing what's happening at Mayo Clinic. And we never know what's going to come into our offices on a daily basis. It could be something simple as a research tool, or it could be the next cure for cancer. And so as we're moving forward with them and working with companies and third parties to move those things forward and working with startup entities to bring those technologies to the patients, that's really what excites us, along with our ability to invest right alongside a lot of those entities. We have 3 or 4 different funds that Mayo Clinic has access to that we can do our own investments right along with it when we see things that we feel we really want to move and accelerate technologies forward.
Thanks, Julie.
So I would sum it up with collaboration, continuity, and next chapter. That is a lot of great collaborative efforts and initiatives to continue to support our MedTech and life sciences community. And I think we'll continue to see, the same sort of historic innovation coming out of Minnesota as we've had in the past. And looking at some of the opportunities out there, I think they represent kind of that next chapter, that next frontier in leveraging data, AI solutions, and creating smart MedTech tech devices.
Thank you, Finn. Sarah?
Yeah, I really love this question. What am I most excited about? At my core, I'm an engineer and so a problem solver, and I see what is happening with AI. And AI is such a broad term. There's DNA sequencing that's happening where you can use AI to understand, the origin of a disease. So there's things like that are going on that are so exciting. And what does that mean? You can actually get to the root cause of a disease. And then those innovations are actually going for cures, not, going for a treatment of a chronic disease, And so I think that getting to the root cause of some of these major health issues that we have using AI and diagnostic tools that are coming out is very exciting. And then as it relates to Minnesota, Minnesota, Earl Bakken, is from Minnesota, and so many things came out of the University of Minnesota, that were first ever, that changed healthcare. So, he was the inventor of the pacemaker, and then went on to found Medtronic. And then Dr. Lillehei was the founder of cardiac, open heart surgery. And so we have so many cool things that came out of Minnesota, specifically the University of Minnesota. And I'm also excited to see who that next kind of Earl Bakken, Dr. Lillehei is, that's really setting the stage for a next gen of healthcare innovation.
Could be Sarah Well.
Could be. We have some great ideas at Melody.
Jamie.
I would echo all that's been said. I mean, Minnesota has the expertise, the resources, the collaborative nature. I think as we think about partnerships and the technology and innovation that is really here to transform healthcare with such a significant and aging population and such a significant portion of our GDP spent on healthcare, I think it's really a great time to be in healthcare.
Great. And I'll just end by saying, for me, it's ecosystem. I'm the oldest guy up here, and so I'm thinking about my legacy, and what I want to do is I want to leave the ecosystem better than when I found it. And that's really a big part of what drives me every single day. And it's just as simple as that. So I think we're going to wrap up at this point. We want to thank you for your attention, and we're moving on. Thank you.